ladies and gentlemen, and my sisters here this morning. I use my microphone today to salute the women of Antigua and Barbuda, and of course the women of the world. I use my microphone today to be a voice not only for the women of our nation, but a voice for our young girls of this Twin Island paradise. I stand also, like the speakers before me, in defense of that quest for equity and social justice, which requires, my friends, a true assessment and analysis of our social and cultural constructs, and an analysis of the legal and other systems which often do little to advance this quest. Today, I stand as a proud beneficiary of the quest. I know that my presence at this microphone is also a symbol of the progress that has been made since the journey began. I am therefore compelled to highlight the fact that there are still many parts of the world where a young woman such as myself could never be given such a platform. And so today, I am standing as the hope that still engulfs this movement of human advancement and of human endeavor. Today, I also remind that we have indeed come a long way, not only as the female gender, but also as a society. This progress, however, must never give a false sense of accomplishment, and it must never give a false sense of accomplishment that breeds complacency or fatigue. It must serve to embolden us to advance this agenda. It must ignite a vigilance that burns steady to light the path of our young girls. It must ignite a vigilance that works to lead many of our women who still live in situations of violence, injustice, and oppression to a brighter path. The international theme which envelopes this year's observance of International Women's Day is simply this: a promise is a promise. Time for action to end violence against women. And in my review, we will also note that there are other themes that are being observed around the world. And one that particularly caught my eye was a theme that said, the gender agenda, gaining momentum. Now this theme aptly sets the prime foundation on which we can assess our national call to educate, empower, and advocate for the end to violence against women. Let me therefore, my friends, ask you this morning, can we, the citizenry of Antigua and Barbuda, say that the gender agenda is gaining momentum? Can we? Are we truly satisfied that the gender agenda has burned the values of equality, of access, of fairness, of respect into the consciousness of this nation and into the hearts of our society, so as to allow the transition and the progress that we crave? My friends, sadly, there are many homes in our nation that would give us a failing grade. There are still many women in workplaces throughout our country that would also fail us. And there are many young girls in our nation whose lives have not felt the impact of such a movement. If we asked this question on a global scale, I fear that the report card would be more disappointing. It is this report card, my sisters, my brothers, that must keep us fighting to end violence against our women and our girls. In this year's celebration of International Women's Day, the United Nations Chief Administrative Officer, Ban Ki-moon, would have said, and I quote, "As we commemorate International Women's Day, we must look back on the year of shocking crimes of violence against women and girls and ask ourselves, how to usher in a better future. How to usher in a better future. My friends, I want to quote also from Kenneth Kaunda, a great African leader who coined this most profound statement, and we all know it. The youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow. Help us prepare them. However, for the purposes of my address, I would wish to alter the late president's wise observation to read, our girls of today are our women of tomorrow. We must prepare them. Violence against women and girls is sadly pervasive and widespread across the globe and occurs with impunity in many countries. Statistics reveal that at least 1 in every 3 women around the world has been beaten, forced into sex, or otherwise abused in her lifetime. No one is immune. This scourge, unfortunately, does not escape our small paradise island state of Antigua and Barbuda. We have as the backdrop of this year's International Women's Day the senseless killing of a young mother of 5, who unfortunately is not the only woman to have been violently killed on the job in recent times. It is indeed disheartening, and it remains disheartening, that in Antigua and Barbuda, epidemiological data on HIV/AIDS continue to reflect an upward spiral among women and girls. It is, my friends, a striking fact that reports of rape of our women and young girls and crimes of a similar nature do not end with the perpetrator being brought to justice at the rate that we as a society should be comfortable with. Today in Antigua and Barbuda, today, we still grapple with the question as to the way we as a nation should satisfy the respect and the right of pregnant young girls to an education. These issues may seem separate and distinct, but they are all connected. And sadly, they work together to speak to the value and the regard that we as a society place on our women and our girls. It is also my impassioned view, and the permanent secretary would have mentioned it, it is also my impassioned view that the outrage which should be expressed by this progressive society when our young girls are physically abused or molested is suffocatingly muted. The silence is deafening. The society in which we now live must begin to proactively take responsibility in protecting our young and vulnerable girls from the raging predators who exploit our silence as a society. This is how we keep the promise, my friends. This is how we gain momentum. The horror, the fear, the sense of rejection experienced by these young girls bears scars that last a lifetime. It is a blemish not only on these girls, but we must all see these forms of abuse as a stain on the society that will eventually absorb these young ladies, these young mothers of the future. And we would have failed them today. As we reflect on International Women's Day for this year, 2013, I therefore call on Antigua and Barbuda to break the silence. I call on us to reverse this cannibalistic cycle of pity, of inaction. I call on us to end the culture of that failure to report the abuse of our young girls and women. My friends, this requires the collective outrage which will birth the societal momentum that we crave. It will birth the momentum to break the cycle and to break the silence, to end violence against women. If we condone the abuse of our young girls, I fear we would have condemned all women to violence. This momentum requires more than just action on the part of government, notwithstanding the chief policy role that government must play. But I wish today to call on the other gatekeepers of society, our religious partners, our non-governmental organizations, our community-based organizations. I call on every home and the wider community to drive this momentum. If we are to cure the problem of violence against our women, if we are to address the societal status quo which breeds inequality and injustice, we must all join forces to root out the chronic disease of violence, molestation, and abuse of our young girls. We must break the silence that feeds the abuse and violence. I am happy to report, as I stand here as the Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Social Transformation, that we are set to launch this month, on the 22nd, what we are going to call the Innocence Project. This will be a year-long campaign aimed at penetrating the cover of silence that feeds the abuse of all children, and in particular our girls. This campaign will be comprised of many components, and basically we will seek to incorporate all stakeholders, even the ones that are here today, to be a part, to push, to break the silence. The year-long initiative will also see the ministry move to review and strengthen the operations of the child care protection agencies throughout the country. We will also undertake a comprehensive revision of all juvenile-related legislation. This year, my friends, I am happy to report that we will also usher in the implementation of a comprehensive child protection policy, which will strengthen and outline the protocols of cooperation with key agencies such as the police department, our teachers, and medical professionals. The ministry joins with the Gender Affairs Department to push, to educate, to advocate, and to empower as we stimulate the discussion and as we feed the momentum to protect our women and our young girls. We therefore invite you all to stay tuned as our campaign unfolds, and we encourage you to support our efforts. In closing, I wish to say that the survival of this nation and the advancement of humankind in general is solely dependent on the defense and protection of our young girls and women. Can I say that? Do you agree with me? Yes. I repeat it. Yes. The survival of this nation is solely dependent on the defense and protection of our young girls and women. This defense and protection of the largest segment of humanity and of the mothers of society must be unrelenting, and it must be continuous. The tenets of this defense, the duty to protect the female gender, is primarily grounded in the principles of respect, of justice, of equality. It is simply, my friends, a defense of human rights. Our young girls deserve nothing less than a level playing field. Our women deserve a chance to exercise the right to live in peace and comfort. They deserve a fair chance to make their contribution to national development. The gender agenda must not wither. We must guarantee the momentum of which the theme speaks for every girl and every woman. All of us deserve a dignified path to assume our rightful place in society. We here today must ensure that we deliver the promise. May God continue to bless the gender agenda, and in so doing, bless Antigua and Barbuda. I thank you.